Now we're going to talk about the top 10 reasons people don't run for office and why you're absolutely wrong to let them stop you. Number 1 is a fear of public scrutiny. And I can certainly understand with all the scandal and people being followed around and everything they say is recorded and on the record, but you have to keep in mind, if this is one of your obstacles, that really only happens in certain congressional campaigns. It's mostly for presidential campaigns, some governors' races, depending on how contentious it is. And so the average person is going to run for local office first. And even after that, they don't go past countywide office. The average politician in America is only known in the county where they live. And even then, they're barely known. Interestingly, even the average state legislator only has like a 20% name ID in their district. Most people don't know who their elected officials are. And most campaigns aren't so contentious that you hire private investigators and opposition research firms to come in to put together every detail of your life. Like, no one's going to spend $30,000 on some fancy DC firm to create a book on you and everything about you and your family and everything you've done and followed you around and really done the rounds on you if you're running for city council in a small town, right? So the scrutiny isn't nearly as bad as most candidates think it is. The second reason good candidates don't run for office is financial concerns, and this is a good one. The average political candidate funded their first campaign. And actually, sometimes they funded themselves all the way up to the White House, for example, or a big chunk of it. So that is something to be concerned about. But there are people who can help you and show you how to raise money. There's consultants on YouTube, for example, who have a YouTube channel that you can like and subscribe to right now, where you can learn how to raise money and do these things. So it is a legitimate concern, but it is good to recognize that if you've got a small business, if you can invest $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 into your first campaign, you're going to be largely much more successful. But if you don't have that kind of money, but you have a really good network, there are things that you can do so that you can live your dream of running for office and trying to serve the public, because we desperately need good people. Number 3, people don't know how to balance a political campaign with their personal life and their professional life and all these other things they have going on. I hear a lot of candidates who give me a call and say they're thinking about it. They're worried because they've got kids in elementary school and they've got a business to run, or they've got life's happening. And that's a legitimate concern and a fair concern, because the political campaign takes a lot of time. But most campaigns are 4 years, because most of our elected officials are county officials, and those are usually 4-year terms, and a lot of city council terms are 4 years as well. And so you really only have 6 months of campaigning every 4 years. That's not as bad as you think. We see these presidential candidates and you see all this stuff on CNN and the news media, and you think, oh my God, it's going to be a nightmare and you're going to have to be busy all day, every day. That's not the case for most campaigns across real America. That's just for national campaigns. Most campaigns don't actually take that much time. But once you're in office, that, however, can take up a lot of time if you're active and you actually care. So that is a concern, but that's no more than a normal 9-to-5 job would be anyway. The fourth reason people have a tendency not to run for office is because of the negative political candidate. Time magazine did a survey on college students to ask them if they had any desires to run for office, and only 11% even were interested in working in politics. And one of the top reasons the 89% said that they weren't interested was it was a negative political climate. They didn't feel like they could actually get anything done, and they didn't see being in office as something noble. That's kind of sad that politics has come to the point where it's no longer seen as honorable to be a public servant and to try to do something. And well, we have the politicians to blame for that, but we also have the voting public who, well, I'll do another video. Top 10 reasons voters suck, right? Because they're continuing to choose people who aren't really the best candidates to begin with. We need good people to run for office to make it a positive political climate, because as long as people don't run because it's a negative political climate, the longer it will stay that way, and it will continue to only be these crazy power-hungry people who went to Jeff Epstein's island instead of good people who got a Rhodes Scholarship or something like that. The fifth reason people don't run for office is no experience. They don't understand how it works. They don't know who to talk to get started. They don't have a very good network. Those are all things that are easily remedied by sometimes meeting with the local parties or even talking to your local officials. You'd be surprised. Most local officials, they're not too busy to talk to you. If you call and say, hey, I want to learn about your office and what you do, can you take a few minutes to talk to me? Most of your officials will actually do that. Congressmen are kind of busy. They're hard to get to, but you can stop by the office and talk to their staff, because congressmen all have district offices. Their doors are open and you can go in anytime. American politics is designed for amateurs. It's designed for people because every American should philosophically understand the role of government in our society. If you have a general philosophical understanding of the government, the foundations of our country, then you know everything you need to know for the most part. That's what you really need to know. Understanding government processes and bureaucracies, that can be a bit intimidating, but really you just need to understand the role of government. If you have the role of government down and have a general understanding of the Constitution, then you're on your way to being able to be a good political candidate. Number 6 is safety. I've heard this quite a few times with candidates being worried because congressmen and other officials frequently get death threats. That we don't have politicians shot very often, right? So that tells you something. Most of these officials generally walk around. I think the only people that have full-time security are our senators when they're visiting the states. Will usually have some kind of security, and presidents and usually governors as well, the Speaker of the House. There's a very small group of people that actually have to have full-time security, and most of the time, even then, there's not serious threats. I think we've had one governor. There's been one conspiracy to kidnap a governor in the last 100 years, if that tells you anything. And that's not saying you won't get death threats, but actual safety isn't nearly as bad as it may look on television. But that is a concern. I guess I can't pretend it's not something to worry about. You never know when someone's going to go crazy in the current political climate. But that should not be something that stops you from running for office and representing your community. Number 8 is a lack of support. Political candidates oftentimes recognize that they don't have the connections they need in their community. But you can get those connections and start working on those connections a couple election cycles before you decide to run for office. You just have to plan ahead. And most people have more folks in their network than they really think they do. If you go to church regularly, if you're a member of a fraternity or a golf club, for example, if you're a member of a garden group, if you have a dance group or a book club that you meet with, then you already have the semblance of a network. If you're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, kind of a useless organization, by the way, but it's good for networking. So if you have these relationships, they mean more than you think. And if you ask people for help, they will oftentimes, if you're a nice person and they like you, you will find that you have more support than you think. You just have to know who to ask for what. And once you understand that, I think you'll find that your network is bigger and there's more support than you think. I was really surprised that the list had ethical concerns on there. I've never, I was just like, this must have been written for a newspaper or something, because I've never had anybody worried about anything ethical on a political campaign. Usually you have to pull people back once the campaign gets going. So although that is on the list, there's no reason to talk about it because it's not a real problem. Ethics, right? The 10th reason good people don't run for office is when they investigate it, they oftentimes don't understand what to do or how to run. So we've created a system that is so undemocratic. First, the candidate has to get signatures on petitions in order to be on the ballot. Then they have to pay a fee once they submit a certain number of petitions. Then they have to fill out campaign finance reports. They have to have a treasurer. Then they have to learn how to navigate an online reporting system that is oftentimes complicated and difficult to understand, and there's little support, especially on the state level. Yeah, the Federal Elections Commission had to get like millions of dollars to hire people because their software is so difficult to use that they have to have a hotline so people can call and ask what to do. And it's really frustrating to use the software when you could just email it and they could scan it. I don't really understand it. They have made it as complicated as possible with the worst piece of software you could imagine using. And so that makes it difficult both on the state and federal level to do campaign finance reports. On top of that, I don't know if this happens in other states. I don't think it does. There's like an ethics commission or something where you have to further report your financial information to the state and then pay another $200 on top of that to be a candidate to this ethics commission, which of course is undemocratic, it's unnecessary. This could be collected by the counties or go with your normal campaign finance reporting, and they certainly shouldn't be charging you to do it. And so there's a lot of undemocratic methods that are used to prevent people from being able to run for office, and this is a huge problem nationwide. I think, in fact, there's some states where you're talking about having to have thousands of signatures to run for office, and sometimes these challenges are so insurmountable that regular people can't run for office. And it's one of the reasons why we only have rich people who can pay for their own campaigns that get involved in the political process, because the average person can't afford that. If I had somebody that wanted to run for office in my city, I live in a city, there's only 90,000 people in the whole county, so it's pretty small. But if somebody wanted to run for office, they'd have to pay all the fees I just mentioned. And so the cost of running for office can be really high just to file paperwork, because we have such an undemocratic system that is specifically designed to keep people out. No matter what they say, oh, we have to have compliance, oh, we have to do this. That's bullshit. They just don't want regular people running for office. But anyway, so that can be a barrier for good people wanting to run for office, and why, if you work with your local political parties, they will be able to help you to do that. So overall, these are 10 solid good reasons not to run, but these are obstacles that can also be overcome. You can't let bureaucracy and bullshit and fear get in the way of you trying to do something to help our country, because we've never needed good political candidates more than we need them now.